Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. If you'd like to send us a question or comment, hit us up at dj@artistfirst.com. And here they are, your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And I guess I won. I get to introduce the program this time.
That's right. It's your turn.
It's my turn. Well, and folks, I will introduce the program. You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman, and I am one of your hosts, Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
That's the best of your hosts, Margaret. And tonight you are in for a treat.
Oh, dear.
Because tonight we talk about Mawwige. Or marriage. And we're going to put a graphic up if it's not up already on the website. So go right over there to artistfirst.com/Soul of the Everyman, and you'll see the graphic from one of the most famous, iconic scenes in the movie The Princess Bride.
Oh, yes.
Where the bishop is giving his famous speech on Mawwige.
Yes, he is.
Mawwige. What brings us here tonight? Love, true love. And my true love is sitting across the room from me.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am, as you wish. And we are just totally not going to do movie references for the whole show. Let me tell you that right now. That would be inconceivable.
Oh no.
But marriage is a topic worthy of discussion, and there's just so many different ways that you can go with it. On a serious note, we just learned very recently of a friend of ours, a good friend we've known many years, a young man who passed away, and we were speaking to his wife, and there is really, in a nutshell, encapsulates the meaning of marriage. It is, literally a pairing of two that become one till death do them part.
Yes. The vows that you take, and you recite the vows in your marriage ceremony. But the reality of it is most people just don't encompass that. They don't think about it. It's everything that's supposed to be now and how our relationship is now. I mean, people who are writing their marriage vows, they don't mention the fact that till death do us part.
Well, I think I don't know if people don't mention it, but I think nobody, let's just say not nobody, but very few people who get married at sort of the typical age in your 20s or 30s or 50s or 90s or whenever people get married. But no one really understands when you make that promise, you make that vow, what you're really going to get into. And it can be the bonding of one life to another for tens of thousands of years through societies and human cultures from the Stone Age to the present day has always been a mysterious and sort of sacred thing, because it becomes entwined with procreation. It becomes entwined with a relationship with spirituality. It becomes entwined with the bonding of two independent souls into a unit, into the kind of the basis of society, which is the family unit. But when you're taking those vows and you're all happy and giggly and everyone's doing and kiss the bride and all this other stuff, you really have no freaking clue what you're actually getting into.
It's true. Because life itself, you think you know what life is about, and the truth is you really don't have a clue. So why should death be any different at that point?
Or marriage.
Marriage, yes. A married life.
Mawwige. But it's all about love. True love. it should be about love. I mean, again, a marriage is something which goes back really to prehistory, and of course, marriages have been used for every purpose under the sun. But the general utility of a marriage is to form a new block in society's chain. A new unit. You pledge your, if you're doing it right, you're pledging your full self to that other person, and it's not a like, and it's not just infatuation. It's not just a desire. It's all of those things and something a little bit more. A marriage crosses the line between yourself and the other, and again, if it's true, it extends you into the other and the other into you in such a way that you really become inseparable. You can put all the laws and all the restrictions and all the words you want about it, but a true marriage is built and codified by those external things, but it's built at the relationship level of a soul to a soul.
Yes. And the beginning, I mean, honestly, when you think of when two people come together and they're just really getting to know one another, they do that dance, if you would, find more and more out about each other. And ideally, falling in love with another person means that you are willing to be together constantly. It's an everyday thing. You do not want to lead separate lives in separate places and just come by and meet and talk. That's what you do with your friends. But when you're talking of marriage, you're committing to putting a life together where you go to sleep and you wake up every morning together. You walk through your day with that contact between each other. It may not be, constantly, but it is there. And although in this day and age there's a lot of texting going on between people.
But it's, it's true thumbs.
Right. And when that commitment exists, when that relationship grows, because it must grow, it's not about one or the other any longer. When your lives are separate, it can be all about you. But when you marry, the next step is all about the other. Some people say, well, then it's all about us. Like, no, you don't get it. It's not that you're pooling all your marbles together so that you have this bigger pile of stuff.
It's not? Oh, no, yeah, it's not. Go ahead. Sorry. In fact, the stuff means nothing. And the vows, and these are the current vows in kind of Western society, but for richer or poorer, for better or worse, in sickness and health, blah, 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 all the way. Because it's supposed to symbolize, not necessarily that you're going to be richer or poorer or any of those things, but that none of that matters. Or rather, that's all peripheral to the relationship.
Right. It is all peripheral to the relationship. The relationship itself is based on whether or not your interactions, your communications are clear, and whether or not you are aware of what it is that you are feeling, and if you are aware of what is going on in your they say significant other, but this is your other. In a marriage, it's your other. this idea of significant means that, well, can you be deemed insignificant then?
You're my insignificant other. I like to refer to you as my big toe.
Oh, so what? The steps in general, understanding that relationship should be special, very special.
Unique.
And it should be sacred. And that's the one thing that people do not want to embrace, or may not want to embrace, because, if you get married and the attitude is, well, if it doesn't work out, it's like commitment means it should be more than just blood. That's a blood brother bonding means that's deeper than, well, if it doesn't work out.
Right. But it's the interesting thing that you said there is that that bond, or rather, the two interesting things are, the first one was that the relationship has to grow. So when you begin this relationship, it is not what it will be in a month's time. It is not what it will be in a year's time. It is not what it will be at the end of your lifetime. It will grow. It will change. But in the same way that a plant is nurtured by perhaps the soil that it's in, or by the way the two come together and make one new thing, which is nurtured by both, and it's a responsibility on both sides too. And the other thing you mentioned was the sacredness of the relationship, and I think where people get stuck there is people hear sacred and they think rules, and they hear sacred and they think, it means I have to do this and I have to do that, and I can't do this and I can't do that. It's more like religion. But the sacredness of that bond is the sacredness of a life bond, or a commitment of a life bond. You said blood brothers, and when you pledge your blood, you're pledging your life. And brothers, blood brothers, is really saying, I will die for you.
Yes.
Your life is as important to me as my own. And the marriage, a marriage should be at that level. Your life is important to me as my own. And actually, if you go a little further, your life is more important to me than my own.
Right.
And really what it becomes is that the life that you had before is still a life, but it is no longer complete, nor is it sustainable without the other. It's the life that you have before is pledged so completely to this relationship that it no longer can be said to be totally your own.
Right. The marriage itself becomes a living, breathing life form. The whole idea is to come together and form something new. The most obvious, of course, is bringing children into the world. That is an obvious manifestation of the purpose of forming a new life. But at the core is between the two. Exactly. You are forming a whole new life. Walking steps, and the growth and the nurturance of that is your first concern. So it's also realizing that once that starts happening, the presence of something far greater than yourself becomes evident. People shy away from that. They're like, well, we're vowing to each other, and everybody else is just going to witness for us. So, yes, that's true. That's true in all types of ceremony. But you must call in that higher spiritual, divine aspect. Not just about you and me. It's about the fact that the love that exists is intimately connected with life.
Mm.
It is all based on a type of love that the human mind cannot comprehend. We want to say we know about it, but the only description that you can come close to in language is when you go into poetry, to begin to encompass the depth and breadth and height that a soul can reach.
Yes, and you have, in relationships, you have passion, you have sexual passion, you have passion for each other, you have just the commitment, the passion of living together and living for each other. But that relationship is maybe formed out of these very seminal elements. The passion, the life, the commitment, all these things. But it transcends all of those things. It encompasses all those things, and it can no longer be said to be just an attraction. It can no longer be said to be just a contract. It can no longer be said to be just a commitment, or even a swearing of one life to another. It's more than all that. And yes, you can talk about all the other trappings of a marriage: the contract, the possessions, the children, on and on and on and on and on. And those things are all important, but they all depend from the basic relationship, or they all have their foundation in the basic relationship. And as I think, in general, we know that. We understand, because, again, going back to time immemorial, to prehistoric times, to the present day, that union has always been special.
Yes, it's just that in previous cultures and civilizations, the marriage was always looked upon as a bonding of families, one family to another, almost more political.
Certainly, there's aspects of that again, but I think those things were built on top of the basic relationship. The bond that family together are so strong because they are the bonds of blood. Now these lives are so connected that to injure one injures the other, and to help one helps the other. So when you connect two units, which the basic unit of the family that you're connecting to the other family is still at its foundation that...
But I'm going to disagree in the fact that the Western world allows a woman to say yes or no to a marriage. That is not true for a lot of the world. Okay, women are not looked on as individuals with the right to be able to make a choice. They're looked on as a possession or as something tradable.
I'm not going to disagree with that, but it's sideways to the point, I think. And let me explain. All those perversions of the relationship are there because we're human beings and we're doing it wrong. So the perversions of a marriage to be political, the perversions of a marriage to become a power or a dominance or whatever it is. But I'm talking about the basic soul relationship in a true marriage of souls, a true marriage of two individuals into one. But yes, I mean, and I think we're getting there a little ahead, but I did want to spend at least half the show talking about why marriages both go wrong or go bad or
Okay.
crack apart, and then some of the perversions of marriage. But,
okay,
we'll
touch on that then. It's just that, ideally speaking, that is how we were made. Was supposed to be this one complementing the other. And it's one-to-one, not one-to, was it, Solomon had 1,000 wives, that's, no.
And we already know that didn't work out.
Right. Again.
It sounds like a great idea. It's not a great idea. Poor Solomon.
I think we said this before, it was 1,000 conditions on love.
Exactly. And maybe that's another place we can explore. Marriage is intimately connected with love. It is intimately connected with commitment. It's intimately connected with all these things.
Ideally.
I'm talking in the ideal or in the abstract. It's intimately connected with all these things at its best, in its best representation, its truest representation. And I like I said, we know that, we feel that at a basic level as human beings. There are certainly other relationships in our lives which can be almost as important or as important. The relationship of yourself to your children is a bond and a commitment, and it has many of these same aspects. But you will have a relationship with your children, which, again, in the ideal, is one from complete dependence to complete independence.
Correct.
But a marriage starts out with free, independent people in the ideal, not all the other perversions, in which there are many, and remains, even though they're completely 100% committed to each other, they're also free individuals. In other words, the commitment is always a commitment of freedom, of free will. It's a voluntary. You said it before. You want to be with this person. You feel incomplete without this person. That this new being which you are becoming is no longer complete. And even when you try to separate it, the pain of the separation can be as painful as dying.
Yes.
In some cases, in some ways worse. When you lose your spouse, your husband, your wife, or whomever your marriage type relationship is with, the pain can be, the old syndrome, the broken heart syndrome. You can literally die from the pain of loss of a spouse.
Yeah.
You no longer, widowers and widows can have expressed and do express the fact that they no longer feel whole.
Right.
That relationship is never to be replaced.
Right.
Yes, you're never going to replace the relationship you have with your mother. You're never going to replace the relationship you have with your daughter or your son. But it's a different sort of loss.
Right. Because you've spent so much time together building a whole new life, a way of being. And then to have that main part, your main focus, ripped away. Because as you said before, the other becomes more important, and meeting the other's needs and wants and dreams and thoughts, all that becomes much more important than your own.
And it's both sides. The equality is there. And like I said also before, the purpose of a relationship with your parents is that over time it changes and you become more independent. In fact, if you're doing it right with your children, you go from a complete dependence to an independence relationship over the course of your life, and then you're going to be separated. But it's a separation of two souls which were trying to be separate, trying to be individuals as a matter of what they wanted.
Right.
But when you separate the two souls that their commitment to each other was such that they felt that separation was as painful as your own life being lost.
Mm-hmm.
That separation, which will happen at some point, is a injury to the relationship, not a development that was required or important or necessary for the life of the two. That there was the relationship of a father to a son, a mother to a daughter, or a mother to a son, or to your children, is that you should grow apart. They want to be, and you should want them to be independent individuals.
You want your children to have their own lives.
Exactly.
You do not want to manage their life. Their life is their own, to make it as they would, as their heart would lead them. That is your deepest wish and prayer, because you want them to be able to grow.
But this relationship between you and I, or between two people who are married, you don't want it to ever grow apart.
Right.
To the extent that it grows apart is to the extent that it causes pain to both.
Right.
If it's true love. No, if it's true love, if it's truly two souls that have become one soul, you're injuring a unit. You're injuring a being, which is the being of this relationship, and tearing it apart. And once you have, it's the old bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, what God has joined, let no man take apart. I mean, these are words that we've heard a million times, but they really mean something when you start to take them apart. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh is a pretty, visceral way of saying that you're really connected to this person. You can no longer separate the bone from the bone without breaking it. You can't separate the flesh from the flesh without tearing it or cutting it. These are visceral. Are visceral, and they're images which evoke a body, a true body made of two people that will feel the pain if you have separation.
Yes.
In the same way that people feel pain when anything happens, when you get a paper cut, for gosh sakes.
Well, what it brings to mind is, I believe it's the Greek myth of what a human actually was. And in the beginning, they described it as a being who had, like 4 arms and 4 legs and one huge body. And the gods back then decided that they needed to bring man down.
Mm-hmm. They're too powerful.
They were too powerful together like that. So they were separated out in half. And they thought, okay, great, now they're not as powerful as we are. But what they noticed was that these halves were running around across the earth looking for their other half.
Right.
And when they did find their other half, they came together and held together and did not even take food in. They refused to separate.
Right. And we're at that point where we're at the rejoining of the 2 half hours by a commercial break.
Okay.
And we're going to do that right now.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the 4th largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indy Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There Is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
You are listening to the Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Now back to your hosts, Michael and Mawwiage Wyans.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. and that was a reprise from the Bishop, from the Princess Bride.
Right.
Love to a love. And tonight's show is about Mawwige. And if you've been listening, this is welcome to the second half of the Soul of the Everyman. We have been talking about marriage, and the first half of the show we spent talking a little bit about what marriage is, and you know what its sort of underpinnings are, the spiritual and the soul connection underpinnings. But as we all know, you know, marriages aren't always based on true love, and as Margaret mentioned in the last half hour, you know, marriages have been perverted and corrupted and used for many other purposes over the many years of human societies, not least of which, of course, has been political and dominance and all kinds of other things. And the other part of marriage is sometimes they just don't work out, and you know they may have been based on, you know, not truth and not based on clear eyes and voluntary commitment. And we all know, and in this society, we all know many relationships that don't work out. And sometimes that's a good thing, but there's always at least an injury there, you know, injury to the people who are involved.
And people do change. You know, in a marriage, the two of you understand that you're going to have to grow together and change together.
And fall apart together.
And fall apart together. You get to watch each other fall apart.
Yes.
But it becomes difficult if your life paths have separated and you've grown apart. We've heard that phrase many times. You know, we've just grown apart. And it means that the concerns that had unfolded in your particular life had drawn you away from that core of, well, you are important, you are more important to me than my very life. So it's difficult, but it is also part of that awareness. I mean, you really should be in a relationship where the other person is committed to you in that way, where their life is much more.
You know what I think it really underscores is that marriages are not one and done. They're not. You don't have a marriage in which you are indelibly or inseparably stuck together with superglue, and yet you never have to do anything to maintain anymore. In other words, you aren't joined and then we can just give up doing anything anymore. We're done. We're joined. At Taba. That joining is always, it requires constant maintenance from both sides. It requires constant commitment and also voluntary. You have to want to do it. It's not something that you get for free. You have to work at a marriage.
Right. Well,
go ahead.
Just when we were talking about the Greek myth, okay, and when the two halves finally do find each other, they hold each other to the point where they just don't want to let go any longer. But what the gods then, the little G gods then, saw was that they refused to eat or do anything else. All they did was held each other, and they died that way.
Right.
There was no healing where they could come back together and live as one single full unit. That healing, they ripped them apart, but they also knew that if we separate, what's going to happen? So, yes, without a healing, a regrowth of becoming one soul again, death comes, because there's no maintenance. There's no feeding of the soul so that it may heal and grow.
Well, and there's a couple different ways you can go with that. We all know people whose relationships are so controlling that it may look as though they're bonded and wedded together, but in essence, what they're doing to each other is strangling each other. Mm-hmm. You have to allow that other person who you love like your own heartbeat to grow, to change, to still be another person. That over time will become a little different. They're going to look a little different. They're going to lose some hair, and they're going to get fat, and they're going to, do strange things like make you get on the radio on Tuesday nights, and you're going to have to say, I still love you, even though you're fat, making me go on the radio Tuesday nights. And, but no, in fact, all those other things are true. But in fact, you have to give that person room to breathe and to be and to change and to grow, and still find that the relationship, the basis of it, was not founded in any of those things. It wasn't founded in my full head of hair or my slim athletic build or the fact that I have this golden mellifluous voice. No, it wasn't founded on any of those things. It was founded on something much lower, much more
deeper,
fundamental. It is much deeper, much more fundamental.
Right, it's the core of your being.
Yes,
the core of your being, where the ability to share ideas, thoughts, feelings is first, and then your life reflects that ability to be able to build on dreams and visions. Family is a direct result of that. The growth of your family and the extension of relationships, you begin to see different aspects of what love actually is. When you're first married, you concentrate on the love that you have for the other. And when you begin to have children, you begin to concentrate on the love that you have for the child. And that relationship is inequitable in terms of abilities and power, because this is a baby and you're the adult. So you must take this role of, okay, I am in charge of this little life. I must do my best to bring this one along, allow this one to begin to grow to participate in the family. And as you said before, that relationship, as the child grows, changes and changes at every stage until they hit a point where they become capable and mature. And you can let them go and watch them without just trying to keep catching them whenever they're about to hit the ground or make a mistake. You know, you are there if they need you, but you also understand that they've got to learn how to stand and move on their own. So it's all aspects and different perspectives on a love relationship. And the adult relationship, because kids take up a lot of time and energy, let's face it.
They do, and we know of people whose the stressors of their families, of their children, cause them to, let's say, grow apart. You know, and you know, it's when you don't have the appreciation of the true root of the relationship, is that when those other things, the external things, start to make that happen. You know, when you commit to someone at the point that you commit to someone in marriage, there's no, and we said this in the very beginning of the show, there's no knowing what you're going to get into.
Mm-hmm.
The stressors that are going to be put on you and the other are unknown, unknowable, and your own mettle is unknown and untested. When you hit those stressors, you're going to change, and the other person is going to change. And unless you husband that relationship, and by husband I don't mean husband in the male sense, I just mean you keep an eye on, and you nurture, and you feed that relationship. It's what we were talking about, what you were talking about before with the myth about the two halves. If they come together and don't feed the relationship will die. If things break them apart, and those things can be stressors, they can be problems with money, they can be problems with children, they can be problems with all kinds of other things. Sudden lightning bolt problems like disease or whatever hits your relationship, and they can crack it apart. And all of a sudden, it's not one body; it's an injured two. And those injured two together, if they get too far separated or they grow too far apart, the relationship will die, and the people themselves, the two, become two again, become separated again. You aren't back to where you started, though.
Right.
You are injured by a broken relationship. It's why we say that it's a broken marriage. And language always informs us. It's not just we came together and then we said, well, that was awful nice. I'll see you next Tuesday, and maybe I won't see you again because you're just a good buddy of mine and we had a great time. No. You have a relationship in which two become one. And then when that comes apart, you don't get yourself back. Mm-hmm. And the other doesn't get their self back. You get something back. But there are scars, wounds, damage that maybe you'll never ever recover from, or you'll certainly never be the same again. No. If you had a true relationship that melded two into one, when you break that apart, you're not. It's not like a do-over card. We're not being respawned into our You're coming apart, but you're going to feel it. You're going to feel like you were torn apart. And people who go through the relationships who break, divorce or however it breaks, they feel like they're torn apart.
Yeah, and the injury is deep, and it takes time. It takes time to heal, because you realize that you are not who you once were when it all began in the very beginning. You've been changed by time and incidents. The interactions have changed you. You're never the same. You are never the same. And I think that's a concept that a lot of people don't even it does not even cross their mind that, I'm really not the same person I was. It's like, this is a constant process. This is the only thing that's guaranteed in this life is change. You will never be the same again, even though you may try.
And that stressor is common to all relationships, and certainly common to every marriage relationship. The stressor of time, and sometimes time breaks apart a relationship. But when you flip it around, there are marriages which the relationship outlasts even physical death. And we know many in that column as well. We know widows and widowers who speak of their lost loved one as though the relationship had never really changed at the core level. They still consider themselves committed to that person, even though that person may be gone a decade, 2 decades, or more.
Right.
And then when they leave this earth themselves, because we all do eventually, because nobody gets off the planet alive. It's in our mission statement. And this is not a threat, but nobody gets off the planet alive. But that time that they spend with that person is so life-changing and so changing to themselves that even the separation of death, they don't consider a separation of the relationship.
Right. The marriage still exists, and they look forward to the moment when they can be rejoined.
Right. Although, remember the Mosaic Law, there's this whole lovely passage where they go and question Jesus. Say, well, Moses allowed us to divorce. And you say that a marriage is between two, and that it is forever, in essence. And the whole idea was that Christ's reply is that Moses let you divorce because of the hardening of your hearts, because you didn't understand. He was giving you the easy way out. Now all that has been used in many different ways, but the point being is that relationship, which we technically say till death do you part in your vows. Some people can't even let that, even death is not enough. It's like, yes, my husband or my wife died, but I still consider myself that's my true love. That's my relationship. And they go to their own graves, never going into that direction or to that depth of a relationship with anybody ever again. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not for everyone. In fact, marriage is not for everyone. In fact, many people do it, find it completely not to their taste. But those relationships, when we look upon them, someone who's been married 70 years or 60 years, 50 years, and like you said, that breaking of death is like, yes, my husband died, yes, my wife died, but yes, I still consider them to be, so that relationship lasts through the grave.
Right. No, we know of people who basically do that. They basically are waiting to be reunited, mm-hmm. and they have never remarried or even thought of it.
Right.
Didn't even cross their minds.
Right. So you have this broad spectrum.
And both male and female.
Oh yeah,
mind you.
Yeah.
Because most people say, it's
I think there's just more widows than widowers because women tend to live longer. But in point of fact, if you remember, well, I won't give names, but there was a gentleman who lived across the street from where I grew up, and the same sort of thing. His wife had passed on, and he remained, in essence, a bachelor for the next 10 or 15 or maybe even close to 20 years. But he always considered that relationship to have been, that you married once, and that was it. That no other could take the place of this relationship. Mm-hmm. Now, all this is not to say that people don't have bad relationships. They do. It's not to say that sometimes stressors are so bad that people have to separate. They do. It's not to say that something's wrong with you if you haven't found your true love. There is nothing wrong with you, you know. But this is talking about the fact that when this happens, it's so special and so unique that these types of things are the consequence. When you commit to your true love, and you are my true love, when you commit to your true love, it changes you at the level that no amount of baldness or fatness is going to change your relationship with this person. I'm the bald fat one. She's not. She's drop dead gorgeous. Look at the pictures on the website. You'll agree with me. But don't look at the pictures. That would be creepy. But anyway, drop dead gorgeous. But
creepy.
the whole point of this is that it's not for everyone. It's for a few. It's not even necessarily the majority, but the ones who have it. We all of us look at that and say, "Wow, that was," and I'll use the phrase, it really was. That was true love. That it's recognizable. It's like, I don't know what art is, but when I see it, I know it. Okay, I don't know what true love is, but when I see it, I know it, and people know it. You know when you see somebody who is truly in love with another, and that it does truly last. Through anything, any physical or spiritual injury or death or whatever, it seems to last right through it.
Right. Love does not stop just because the body is no longer there. And that is something that I remember we did have a discussion with. But to take steps in that, see, in order to embrace a relationship like that, you must be willing to sacrifice who you happen to be as a single and understand that you will never be this ever again. And most people find that too frightening. Too frightening because the commit is 110%. It's more than who you think you are. And God is the only way that you get through a lot of the things that go on that will test you in a marriage. If you really want to grow in consciousness in your heart to begin to embrace unconditional love, marriage was the tool that we were given. Love is the tool, but marriage is the mechanism. You will learn a great deal about the human soul in a marriage.
Yes, you do. And it really, and this is perhaps the best thing to take away, it really is not for everyone.
Correct.
And I don't mean that everyone, that people should get married and they should try it and they should, but the lifelong commitment to anyone is a difficult thing under any circumstances.
This is why I say God has got to be the core, because there are times when you must receive strength from the divine spirit you are akin to in order to get through the hell that exists down here. And there is hell down here.
Yes.
Make no mistake about it. But it's through that strength that it can come about. And that strength in a marriage, when both are praying for strength because you're in a situation that is out of your control and you don't know where to turn, and you've done everything that you can to try to solve this problem, try to save a life, and it's out of your hands. Only through the grace that comes through that divine heart connection, that love, can you get through it? Because you are ready just to lose it and lose everything that you are in that moment. There's nothing that you, as a person, as a personality, as a human being incarnate, can do. But you need, and you can't just let it slide.
Yeah, and to bring it back to the marriage is that strength that flows into the relationship is captured in both of those people. In other words, stressors which don't break apart a relationship affect that relationship as a whole. So you're having a problem with money. Well, if you don't break apart the relationship, both of you are having a problem with money, or whatever is problem with disease. An injury to one partner of the relationship or to one part of that unit, whether it's a child or something else which is bound to that unit, injures the whole unit.
Yes.
The strength which you're looking for is to strengthen the whole unit, and it can come from either side, or it can come from either portion, or it can come some from here and some from there. You again have this wonderful reservoir of energy and strength and love in both sides of this relationship, which is traded back and forth seamlessly. Mm-hmm. This is the strength of the relationship. It's also in some ways the place of attack in any relationship. It's the transmission of those energies back and forth.
It is a heart-to-heart communication, because at that point, your heart is the core and strength of your ability to handle the stressors that are going on. And when you see a stressor, yes, one if taking our situation, when Christopher was so sick and suffering, obviously suffering, all of the family was affected by it. But it's, again, as the parent, you don't indulge in, oh, this is terrible, my baby is suffering this way, oh, I feel so bad. It's like, no, he actually is the one that is suffering. And you put aside all your concerns about how you feel, and you come to him and let him speak to you, because he needs to express what is happening to him. He is suffering. You stand there and you witness what this soul is going through.
And in the relationship, your back is held by that partner.
Yes, because...
And no matter what the stress is on either side, you can count on that relationship being strong enough to undergo.
Yes, whenever you needed an added boost, you were there.
You were there. And so, my true love, we have come to the end of this relationship on the radio. But
the end of this episode.
And the end of this episode of The Soul of Everyman. And
I'm Margaret Lyons.
I'm Michael Lyons. And
thank you for listening.
Very much for listening.